Be smart, it's your money.
The Confident Homeowner with Matt DeBarra.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Confident Homeowner Podcast. I'm Matt DeBarra, the Undercover Contractor. Today I have with me a very special guest by the name of Gail. She's an interior designer. Gail, take it away. Give us an introduction as to who you are and what you do.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me this afternoon. So I'm a 20-year seasoned interior designer. We do interior design project management for busy working professionals who want more of a turnkey service and to create beautiful luxury homes that are also healthy. And I've been doing this in the Southern California area for quite a number of years. I really enjoy it. Love the transformation process.
I love that. So thank you for being here. Question, what is a
Yes.
healthy home?
What is a healthy home? Oh, such a good question. It's a really timely topic after what we've all been through with 2020 and the pandemic. It's a home that supports your mental and physical well-being while also looking beautiful. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that. The kitchen and the bathroom are the key areas. And I love to have that discussion with clients. Like, how can we incorporate some appliances that are going to really help you cook a healthy meal for your family? How can we make your master suite bathroom into a wellness center, bringing some of those amenities from the spa home? How can we create your home office so you feel confident and prosperous and you're ready to take on the world? And that helps your mental well-being. So it's really looking at how we can help clients live their best life. And the buildings, your environment can be a support in really helping you thrive, frankly.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like COVID shifted the way that interior designers handle that design? Do you feel like very quickly it flipped the script in terms of how we design inside interior spaces?
It did. The manufacturers are really responding. That first year, we had a lot of touchless technology, particularly in the kitchen and the bath. There was a lot more discussion on cleaning, on antibacterial surfaces. So we like to specify quartz countertops like a Caesar stone or a silestone, things that are super easy to clean. They're non-porous. There's a number of ways that we can address health and cleanliness in the home. Yeah.
Now, you touched on something before we started filming. You were talking a little bit about the difference, and I think this will be great for anyone listening, between an interior designer and a decorator. I want to jump right into it.
I know the hair on my arms goes up when you say decorators. So many of us have invested in having a professional formal education, and we've gone through a rigorous class curriculum of drafting, building codes, color theory, art history, you name it. Those are the people that are usually coined interior designers. Now, granted, there are a lot of really qualified decorators, but they typically don't have the training in moving walls, anything structural. We do work with structural engineers as designers. They don't have as extensive education background, and they're really more focusing on just the aesthetics, maybe the furniture, the colors, the window treatments, the art, the accessories. Designers are shaping space. We work almost similar to an architect. Obviously, there are limitations, but we're much more into the shaping of the interior space.
Now, how would I delineate the decision between if an architect says, "Oh, I can handle this," versus a decorator? What criteria would I have that I say, okay, I need an interior designer for this project?
That's a good question. And we do get that a lot. If you're doing remodeling, I really suggest you work with an interior designer. If there is structural involved, then you bring in an architect and or a structural engineer. You don't want to fool around. A homeowner's safety is paramount. And we need to make sure, particularly after what happened in Florida, and we're in earthquake country here, you need to be able to be confident that your home is structurally sound. We're not taking out a wall between your kitchen and your dining room that's supporting a second floor and not doing the structural calculations and addressing all the beams and posts that need to be reinforced. So I would advise homeowners, if there's anything structural you're considering, make sure you have a designer and an architect, or a designer and a structural engineer. If you're just doing some cosmetic refresh, then sure, go ahead, hire a decorator. That's great. But really keep in mind what your scope of work is
What
before
about
you talk to
project
them.
size? Is there a project size that warrants one versus the other? So like, let's say I'm just going to do a
Right,
bathroom,
right.
but I'm passionate about this bathroom.
I hope you're passionate about the bathroom, because that's where you spend a lot of time in your day,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? I would say, something like a simple bathroom remodel, not a lot of structural. Again, sure, you could use a designer. You don't need to get an architect or a structural engineer in there. You could use a decorator if it's, again, we're not moving walls. And there's plenty of talented decorators. So
Do you feel like it's an indicator or a sign for a designer, an interior designer, to have a team of contractors that they've worked with regularly?
absolutely. When you're hiring an interior designer, you're hiring his or her network. And that's one of the values that we bring to a project is I have a vetted network of subcontractors. And we designers, we're a picky bunch.
Yeah, I'm aware.
I'm sure you're
Very
aware, right?
I admire it though.
We're looking at 1/8-inch grout joints.
Mhm.
We're looking at corners and edges. We're looking at how that painter is painting. We're looking at that tile install. And if our subs aren't doing it the way that we expect and the way we drew it on the CAD plans, you're going to have we're going to be having a discussion.
Yeah.
So I think definitely that is part of the value that we bring. Now, a lot of people, they're like, oh, I can just go online and buy things and decorate my own house and do this. Sure, to a point. But you really, when you want to add value to your house, you want the level of finish to be a certain quality. So you need that designer to be your advocate and your conduit with the subcontractors and contractors and ensure you get the best quality.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the
Yeah.
goal of having kind of a package and not having a designer that has,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've all done it. I mean, in my course of my 20 years, have I brought in a sub that didn't perform? Sure. I thought they would perform, but for whatever reason, they had an issue and it didn't turn out the way it was supposed to. So immediately I bring in another sub and we fix it and we do it on our own time. So we try to work with the A team. We don't want the junior varsity team.
Yeah, exactly. We have a saying in my office, and it's brain surgeons and interior designers are the two people we have to be careful of because
Yeah.
the attention to detail and
It's off the charts.
yeah,
It
exactly.
is.
There's like a whole nother realm.
Yeah.
And it's those two categories. It's literally we did work for a brain surgeon, and that was, I mean, you could see within microns
Yeah.
it was unbelievable. And then interior designers, my interior designer clients, it's the same thing. It's like the
Yeah.
level of specificity that we need to have is just, but it's a compliment. I mean, it really is. That's what you want.
It is. It is. We're trying to create a beautiful environment, add value to the property. I mean, you can walk through some spec homes and you can see where they cut corners, and perhaps there wasn't a designer involved on the day-to-day level of the corners and edges aren't finished correctly. The paint is messy, or you as a mason, you've probably seen things that it's just not finished right. So you really want to trust your designer that attention to detail is one of their priorities. And also another thing is we specify certain products for a reason. And a lot of times, if you're working with some subs or contractors you don't know, they might try to do the old switcheroo. Like, I specify Caesar stone countertop, but they are actually not buying that. They're going down to a local quartz fabricator and buying a cheaper import product and trying to install that and pocket the difference. So the interior designers, architects, we're here to work with the homeowners and be their point person in between with the trades and make sure that they get the quality that they've invested in. So,
And is it pretty normal for a homeowner to reach out to an interior designer directly, or are you finding that they're reaching out to an architect or a general contractor and then they're bringing and recommending you? What do you see that?
yeah, it works both ways. I think if it's a smaller job, it's not a new build. If it's a new build, they're calling the architect and then the general, and then they usually bring us in. If it's a remodel, sometimes they'll call us directly, and we'll put the team together. But it's really important to have a good team, and I can't stress that enough. When homeowners are interviewing interior designers or an architect, they also need to talk to some of the other trades that they work with to make sure that professional plays nice with others. If you've got a designer or an architect who's a total prima donna, you're going to have a miserable job. It's going to be tension, there's going to be finger pointing. It doesn't work. So you want to make sure when you're interviewing, ask for some references of past clients. Also ask for some references of contractors they work with and architects. Because again, you need a cohesive team. A lot of these projects, they'll go on for 6 months, 9 months, year and a half. You probably know some of your projects probably go on like 2 years.
Mhm.
So
Do you find a lot of the architects and landscape designers that we work with, as a whole, I find that the projects run the most smooth when they bring us or introduce us in the kind of the bidding and conceptual phase? Do you advocate for that?
Oh,
That's a process that
absolutely.
you?
Absolutely. Yeah. We do a trade day. So we'll schedule like a 4-hour window where we'll have in maybe 4 or 5 of the trades come see the as-built, see the condition in the house, look at our plans while they're there and start bidding and meet the homeowner. And it gives the homeowner a lot more confidence, like, okay, this is my team. I like these guys. They're cool, they're knowledgeable, they show up on time. I think it's really important.
Do you find that do you find that there's more common pitfalls in terms of I should have brought in an interior designer and I didn't, aka the general contractor or architect said, no, 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 we have it. Don't worry about it. Or do you find bigger pitfalls in hiring the wrong interior designer, having to go to fix it? Or is it
That's a
just
dangerous
well,
question.
or is it what are you
Yeah.
seeing in them to give homeowners kind of a clarity as to what maybe a bigger concern might be? Or are you seeing it's both?
Well, again, it's all based on your scope of work.
Mhm.
So if you feel like you have a small enough scope of work that you and the contractor can handle it, and you like his design sense, and that's the key. A lot of contractors, they're not designers. They might suggest product to you that is just readily available at the big box retailer. So you're going to end up with a beige-delicious house,
Yeah.
which nobody wants that anymore, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would, if you don't have the budget to hire a designer for the entire scope of your project, maybe just at least have a 2 to 3 hour consultation with them just to kind of set the design concept and the direction on color materials and get some ideas for sourcing. Because if you're going to defer that to the contractor, you're going to end up with what he likes. And so I think it's important to bring a designer in. Now, whether it's full service or a limited consultation is up to the homeowner and their budget.
And I'm so glad you brought that up because that's
Yeah.
something that I am there's two huge things that I always push for homeowners. I say number one is maintenance and inspections. So that's more on the construction
Yes.
side. And then on the design side is if you're not sure, is to at least pursue a consultation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's worth its weight in gold. And you can have a lot of ideas from Pinterest or House, but they might not execute well. So I think at least having that professional consultation, maybe it's 2 or 3 hours, maybe it's $800, $900, and at least you've got some direction, and then you feel more empowered to work with your contractor.
Yeah, I think that's really, really a good topic to touch on because, uh, especially in my world, I see it more frequently in the landscape design section. But
Yeah.
I've seen so many. I'll tell clients, I'll say, look, at the very least, just meet with this designer for an hour or two and just
Perfect.
see. And I can't tell you the amount of times one of two things happens: either the design and vision changes almost completely just from the hour or two, or they end up hiring them and the whole vision changes and it's exactly what they want. But I've
Right.
never, in my experience, ever had a client who did a consultation that was like, this is a waste of money and I didn't get anything.
No.
Ever.
No, I agree because we're in it every day, 24/7. We eat, breathe, sleep design and product knowledge. And that's another key point that we bring to the table is we bring a lot of product knowledge. We go to the trade shows. We go to the kitchen and bath show in February. We look at all the new product. I was just in Las Vegas this weekend, my husband and I, and we're looking at new product. We're talking to manufacturers. We're seeing how it's built, how it's made, is it comfortable? So designers, architects, they bring product knowledge, a vetted team of subcontractors, and knowledge of the building codes. And that is really important for homeowners.
What are some questions that you would ask an interior designer to kind of understand and gauge their experience or whether or not you might want to work with them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've written a couple blog posts on 11 savvy questions you need
Okay.
to ask when hiring an interior designer. Um, I think one of the problems I see is a lot of people get seduced by this Instagram feed that a potential designer has or their online portfolio. And they think, oh, I love her work. It looks great. Oh, she's so cute. She's so fun. And they kind of forget about having the business conversation. Like, how does this potential designer handle the business aspect?
Mm.
Right?
So true.
It's so true. I mean, you wouldn't hire an attorney or a doctor and not question them about their billing practices, about the timeline, about their experience, how they're going to handle if something goes wrong. So you really want to, one, like their aesthetic, two, inquire a lot about their business practices. How do they charge? What is their policy on custom furnishings? And what happens if you don't like something? Can you return it? Can you exchange it? You know, all those important things. How are we going to communicate together? Are we going to communicate via email, via a weekly Zoom meeting, via on-site meetings? So kind of explore what the process is like working with that designer. Now, there's some cool new apps in our world where you can give a client an online portal and they can log in and they can see the status of their job and they can see the status of all the products, see that you've ordered, where they're at, what the shipping delays are. So it's good to talk to your designer about that. Do you have a client portal? And then how do you bill? Is it square foot? Is it flat fee? Is it cost plus? How many years have you been in the business? Who am I going to deal with? Am I just dealing with your assistant who's like 3 years out of design school, or am I dealing with you?
Great point.
Yeah, because a lot of times the designers are so busy, they defer to junior staff. And then sometimes the homeowner is feeling a little frustrated.
Should the designer, what is a good, in your eyes, what would be a good amount that a designer goes to the job site? Because I know that on, for example, if you have a really good team, I've seen a couple examples. One of them
Yeah.
is I've worked with designers that have phenomenal teams and they really don't have to go. They know the
Right.
intervals to go and they're almost not there. And I've
Right.
had clients get upset where they're like, I paid you X and you weren't there. And then I've had
Right.
other designers and they're there every day, but it's because they're struggling to manage the team. So
Oh, I
what is your
know.
take on how often a designer should be there, or does it matter or does it not? What do you think?
Oh, it absolutely matters. I think again, we have to go back to what's the scope of work? Is it a kitchen remodel, bathroom remodel, whole house remodel? But you want to be there at key points like rough electrical, rough plumbing. I cannot tell you how many times we do those CAD drawings and we get it down to the quarter inch, but the guys aren't following it. And all of a sudden my shower head is at 8 feet AFF above finished
Yeah.
floor. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute here. Or,
Yeah.
so you really need to, before they close up the walls on an interior remodel, you want to go during rough plumbing right before inspection. Make sure the roughs are where you want it. You want to go during rough electrical. You want to do one more time before they close the walls, because once you close the walls with drywall, it gets a lot more expensive if you want to move something. The other times that are really important to be there are during finish. And finish is during tile installation, during hard surface installation, countertops, fireplaces. You want to be there absolutely during painting, because I can't tell you how many times clients are like, whoa, I don't know about this color. But then you're like, trust me, it's going to look beautiful. Just trust me. And they're like, okay, Gail. And then a week later, they're like, oh my God, I love it. Oh, it looks great. So, those key points in the finish work, you definitely want to be there. And lighting installation. So again, like you said, you're investing in designer. You want them on board, regardless of how tight their drawings are. They need to be showing up and making sure everything gets done right.
Yeah, I think that's a piece that in my eyes sometimes gets a little bit underrated for client from your perspective, right? From the client viewing hiring the design professional is
Yeah.
how much of that, because the emotional stress of I don't like this and having to communicate with a contractor that just wants to go,
Yes. Yeah.
versus you being able to take the time to explain to the client. I mean, we do that in my company.
Yeah.
We're a rare subcontractor. I mean, most subcontractors are not, they don't do what we do, but I think that's such an underrated. When I heard you say it, the light bulb went off and I'm like, wow, there's so many times that the emotional stress of I'm in making this investment and it doesn't look good and I have to go to work in an hour and they're going to paint the whole house.
Yes.
Like having a designer there to be able to send a photo and be like, hey, can you stop by, make sure everything looks good?
Exactly.
That's such an underrated element of this.
Yeah, that's a good point that you brought up, because we're really there to be the spokesperson for the client. That's our job. It's quality control, be a spokesperson for the client, make sure that the subs and the general are following our design direction and it's being done right. And there's going to be problems. There's always problems in construction. No matter how well we plan, something's got to come up. Something's going to come up. And that's part of the fun, is you've got to be able to think on your feet quickly and pivot, talk to your client, get approval, readjust, and keep the job moving forward. So that is one of the reasons contractors, they don't want designers on the job, because they think we're going to slow down the job. They want to get in, get out, get on to the next job.
You're not wrong.
I know
mean,
the
you're
deal.
not wrong. That's a general stigma for sure.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I've seen it. I was just on a project and
Yeah.
the stucco crew was like, oh gosh, the designer's here. Like,
They're
let's
like,
go on lunch. Let's go on lunch. Like, and I heard of it, they're like, oh, they're gonna be asking all kinds of questions.
Right.
But it's for the client's benefit, and that's what I'm
It
all
is
about.
absolutely. And frankly, it's not inexpensive to hire a designer. It's an investment. So we need to be at the job site and making it work for our client and giving them that vision that they want. So,
And I think one thing to touch on too, because I think it's also an underrated point is, and I see this again, my world's exterior, but the same principles apply, is the amount of money you save by not duplicating work with the subs.
yes.
Because when you have the designer there, you're really clarifying the scope to a granularity where I was on a project where the client insisted on not hiring a landscape designer. And I was like, you have too many elements here. There's no way this is all going to coordinate. So we were pouring concrete and doing these things. And then the client's like, oh, actually, I want to put irrigation there. I'm like, well, we already poured the concrete. There's no line. We have to cut. We have to trench. Like, we have to bring the irrigation person back in. It caused all these duplicated costs. And so I think another point that I'm now remembering again is that you can avoid those duplicated efforts.
Yes, and you're going to save time and you're going to save money because we do a lot up front. We spend 6 to 8 weeks in the planning process with the client, talking about all the little details and doing the drawings to support it. So if you haven't gone through that process and then you start remodeling, like you said, perhaps your backyard, and then you're changing things, it's going to cost a lot more money, particularly if you've laid hardscape or closed up walls with, drywall, and you're going to delay the job. And your subs are going to get frustrated because they have other jobs that they are working on simultaneously, typically, and it's going to cause them to have to stay on your job longer. And everybody's going to start getting behind. So doing that advanced planning, that due diligence on, let's drill down on what the homeowner's vision is and what they really want and talk about it all now. Get it on paper, get samples of the materials, get it approved, and then have everything delivered at the house ready to go. And that's a really important one, particularly now with all the lead time issues that we're facing. Have your products and materials in your garage ready to go or close nearby the job site, and then your job is going to go a lot faster. And you probably run into this too.
More often than I'd like to admit.
I know.
It's tough. The delays right now are tricky.
Yeah.
If you're bringing in a designer and you're just in the introductory phases, you're not sure who you're going to select.
Yes.
What is a fair amount to expect up front in terms of a designer's commitment or ideas? Because I think this is a good point for homeowners too, because sometimes they maybe unintentionally expect too much. Sometimes maybe they don't ask enough when they should really be,
Right.
digging into the experience and asking. We touched on, and I think it was yesterday before we decided to, or before we committed the exact time, you had mentioned that how some of your clients say that, well, I just trusted my gut with this person.
Yes. Yeah. That's a really important point during the interview process. So I would not go in as a homeowner, inspect and expect that your designer is going to give you any drawings or 3D renderings. And we do get asked that sometimes. And I'm like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Do you know how much time that takes to produce? We're happy to produce it for you, but that has to be after we've had a lot of exploratory conversations about what you want. So at a minimum, what you can expect is what you should expect when you're talking to an interior designer is a job site visit, at least an hour and a half consultation with you, a written proposal of the scope of work, a written approximate estimate of how much their time as a designer it's going to take to do your job, and a general sense of how much is this job going to cost. I mean, most of us, we've been in business for a while. We can look at a space and I can tell you that's going to be at least a $65,000 to $100,000 kitchen. That's going to be at least a $40,000 bathroom. So you want to have a sense that you're working with someone who is in your price range. And as a homeowner, you want to also be transparent with your budget. I see a lot of homeowners holding their cards close to their vest. They don't want to tell you what their budget is. Do you find this also?
Very, very common.
All
Very
the time.
common. Yep.
And it's really a disservice to the homeowner because if they don't let us know what the budget is, I can spend 6 hours going in the wrong direction, specifying a $5,000 whatever sofa, or I can spend 2 hours finding a $1,200. So, we need parameters as designers. So I would encourage homeowners to just be upfront about what they want to invest in the project. It doesn't mean we're going to spend all their money. It just gives us some parameters like, okay, this is a $100,000 kitchen remodel. All right, I know what I can do. I know how much is going to have to be allotted to cabinetry, how much to appliances, how much to countertops. Maybe we save a little money on plumbing or whatever it is. But really being transparent about your vision and about your budget. and getting written proposals. Always, always, always.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I actually came up with a visual for clients for exactly what you're talking about, where I call it the project pyramid. And on the three
Oh,
points of the triangle, I have one is B, which stands for budget, F is functionality, and A is aesthetics. And so,
yes.
budget, what do you want to invest? Aesthetics, what does it look like? And functionality, does it slope? Does it drain? Does it work? And I tell clients, I'm like, look, there's one point in this triangle that is your sweet spot where I meet your budget,
I
it meets
like
your
that.
aesthetic,
I'm going to
and
use
yeah, you can
that.
take it. Yeah, yeah, it's the project pyramid. And I'm like,
Yeah.
there's one spot. And, as you move more towards budget and functionality, you move away from aesthetic, right?
Right.
As you move more towards, paying more money for an aesthetic, and I basically show
Right.
them visually.
Right.
And I'm like, but there's one point for you. So the more I understand what you want, the
Right.
more I can tailor. I think one thing we can emphasize to kind of round this out, because we hit on some really good topics, is just how custom or how much leeway there is, more so you than me, but in the design phase, when okay, this is my number, I can work backwards from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It makes our job a lot easier. We just value engineer it. We're just like, okay, let's reverse this. And we know how much to allot for each trade and where we can save money, or we need to splurge a little. We need one wow in the space. So maybe we're going to put a little bit more money into this one element, but we're going to dial it back on some other ones. And so it needs to be a collaborative process and not a process where the homeowner is being secretive or obtuse or just not transparent about how much do you want to invest. We're not here to spend all your money. We're here to create a beautiful environment and get a referral for it from you. I mean, seriously,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
that's true. Yeah.
We want it to be a pleasant experience.
Of course,
Yeah.
especially when you're dealing with something that's very emotional. I mean, it really is an emotional thing because we even have it in a lot of more so concrete than I mean stonework too, where you're dealing with natural materials and
Yes.
and not so fixed variables, and there's a lot of emotion, and how you deal with that and how you convey that is really important. Last point that I want to touch on is how important is it that, because I've seen two sides of the coin. One side is I've seen a client and a designer and they click really well,
Mhm.
but that person doesn't have the experience that the client needs.
Yes. Yeah.
Versus they click really well and they have that experience. How much of it is personality a fit? Have you ever had a client where you're like, I have the skill set you need, but personality wise, I can't.
Ooh.
What do you feel on this? I think it's a good way to close that out. I wanted to
I
touch on
can't tell
this.
you how important that is. You need a designer that allows you to speak, and you want to feel heard as a client. There's a lot of talented designers, but they have really strong personalities and they're really pushy. And they're hoisting their aesthetic onto the homeowner, and that doesn't feel good to a homeowner. So you want to feel comfortable with that person. You also want to make sure that they have the professional personality and acumen to handle problems well, because there could be some kind of delay in product or construction issue, and they need to be tactful and professional and handle it right and not be screaming at subs or yelling at vendors. And so you want someone who's professional, who listens to you, who makes you feel important. They're not talking about their other jobs while they're at your jobs, who's respectful, who shows up on time, common courtesy, really, really. And I think you will do really well as a designer if you have those kind of qualities. And, frankly, a lot of us, we become friends with our clients. We're working with them for months and months and sometimes years. And we end up going out to dinner or going on a vacation or whatever. So it's a very personal relationship in the residential world. So it's a little different than commercial, but it's very enjoyable. You have to be a people person.
Yeah, which you are. I mean, this has
Yeah.
been awesome.
Good.
Well, Gail, I appreciate you taking the time to kind of educate us on this.
Sure.
And it's been an absolute honor.
Oh, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. I hope people come away feeling a little bit more empowered and confident when they start this process, that they have the skills to interview a designer or a contractor and make the right choice.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.